Alright guys, HyDra back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Dashy's been going off on the main stage over the last few days, and this time he's directing his ire the way of casual players. The way he sees it, they've ruined Call of Duty over the last several years with the decisions that the developers have made as a result of what casual players have pushed for. This comes amid rumours that slide cancelling will for sure be returning for this year's Call of Duty title, when there's been many questions over the last couple of seasons as to whether there should be any sort of special movement in the game or not. Very much enjoyed to hear your perspective in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new, as always, I greatly appreciate it. First of all, this image I believe was taken at pretty much this time exactly last year. The World Championship last season was slightly later, of course, and it means we have an even bigger off-season than we're used to at this point. But nonetheless, the Los Angeles Thieves lifted the trophy basically this time last year. So incredible to look back on for sure, and things changed dramatically over the coming weeks after that, and they have done as well this time around. Also, just to close the loop on this HCS Salt Lake City event that happened yesterday, the OpTic guys fell short in 4th place, lost game 5 to FaZe. I think definitely, like, based on what I don't really watch that much Halo, I've got to say nowadays, and I do tune in a little bit just to see how Formal's getting on in general. I feel like the team was performing, the OpTic guys and Formal were like a little bit better performing than they were a little while ago, but nonetheless, 4th is still not what they want. I wonder whether they'll consider changes and stuff, because they lost to FaZe, who then lost to Sentinels, who then lost to Space Station in the final, so clearly the 4th best team in some respect. It's interesting as well that they're doing this whole, Space Station effectively hosted this tournament, and they win it, which is, it's cool. It's not exactly a rarity that happens in Call of Duty as well, when you've got the OpTic majors and all this other stuff happening. So, nonetheless, pretty good stuff. And these were just the final placings here. So that Space Station team wins it. Then Sentinels, FaZe, OpTic top 4, only 10 grand for that. Quadrant, Native Red, Complexity, Shopify Rebellion completing the top 8. So yeah, plenty of things for them to think about, I'm sure. But let's talk about slide cancelling, because you guys probably remember at the start of last season, the general community perception was, I think, that we wanted slide cancelling gone. It had been in the game for a very long time, especially since it went back to boots on the ground. Modern Warfare 19, Cold War, Vanguard was a very common feature and was not particularly well liked by certain pros. And this is like, we'll talk about this in relation to what Dashy says here in a second, because during the era of, let's say, Cold War, there were a few times where Crimsex, the greatest of all time, the most victories of all time in that sense, said, oh, these Simp and aBeZy guys there, I think he was semi-joking around, right? But he basically was like, look, they're slide cancel merchants. In a different game with no slide cancelling, they would be a little bit different. And, in fairness, Simp maybe wasn't quite the same player this year than he has previously been. I don't think Simp and aBeZy are actually slide cancel merchants, but still, some pros had made that point over time that some players would be better or worse in different movement situations, and there was some eagerness from pro players to have an environment with no slide cancel in the game, and that's pretty much what Infinity Ward tried to do with Modern Warfare 2, but we found early on that Shotzzy was able to discover ways to still kind of do it, and there was lots of talk about this. Eventually, they kind of removed it from the game, and it wasn't really a feature of gameplay in last year's title. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if they could just get rid of snaking, it would be a lot better. But what they did yesterday is, to FaZe swag here, they give him this effectively like a goodie bag type thing. It's a promotional marketing thing for the new game, but they give him a set of slides, a can, and then a cell phone comes along as well. So I think it's quite clear what they're trying to say here, that slide cancelling is going to be back in Modern Warfare 3. And I mean, wow, thank you, Infinity Ward, or like Sledgehammer or whatever, for giving us this blessing. So what I find quite funny, right, is that slide cancelling, I will, to be fair, a lot of people wanted it gone last year, but there are plenty of things in the games over the last few years that have been, we've wanted to stay, they've been removed, and then when the developers put them back in, everyone says, oh wow, well done Infinity Ward, like you've done it right, oh thank you COD gods for giving us Ninja back, or Dead Silence, which we're probably going to get in this year's game. So it seems another classic, right, where they're marketing something that maybe shouldn't have been gone in the first place, but still, that does seem to be the implication here, that slide cancelling is going to be back in the upcoming game, and as Crone says, a teaser package was sent to content creators that, contains what we just had a look at. So So yeah, what do you guys think about this? Do you want slide cancelling to return to the game? My perception is I'm kind of down for it, to be honest, especially games like Cold War, for example. I thought the movements, excluding snaking, because snaking's always an absolute nightmare, but in general, that game movement-wise was pretty good, and I think the slide cancelling is a fun feature. I want there to be some sort of advanced movement that you can do, so just that if you're playing against someone who's brand new, you can absolutely body them like it was in the jetpack era. And I think this goes back to what we're going to talk about with Dashy here in a second, that the games nowadays, especially from like a brand new player or a casual player's perspective, aren't the same as they used to be, and for a couple of different reasons that we shall describe. Now, I know there's talk about slide cancelling and what you guys think about what it means for tactical sprint and all this, whether tactical sprint still exists or whether they're just going to do a single sprint type thing again, but probably there's going to be tac sprints if it's anything like Modern Warfare 2. But the slide cancelling in some form is almost always, well, almost certainly it seems at this point, returning for next year. I'm sure we'll see some reaction by the pros to that over the coming days and weeks. But this is what Dashy had to say on the state of Call of Duty now and how it's been in the past. Now, I will say, I think Dashy had probably been, as he is a lot of the times lately, on a very long stream here. I don't imagine he'd slept much in the last couple of days. So you could, you know, maybe he's losing his mind a little bit. But I do think that he's making some interesting points. I'm not sure I would be directing my eye the way of the casual players. I'd more so be looking at the developers. But still, I'll just share what Dashy has to say.
We're all here because of wall running? Dude, like, why can't we just go back in time and just take back what we said and just say this is the best COD ever in the moment, just so the devs get so much dope and build off this, bro? We were roasting what we had, bro, and then they gave us MW 2020, and now you mother are responsible for this for the Gunsmith Dog Wars dynamic CODs. You guys are responsible for this. It's all you guys is dog. I don't like wall running. You guys ruined COD. How about that? You guys ruined it. You ruined it for all of us, bro. Good shit. Good shit. I hope you like this sound EQ, no daddy, 17 attachments on my gun. I can close doors back and forth and tac sprint my guns like this the entire game CODs. I hope you guys f with it, because I could be playing this shit. I could still be playing this. Different maps, different mechanic, different guns. Y'all f this, bro, because you couldn't shoot straight and you felt self-conscious, so you went to Twitter and just started roasting the wall runs instead. You guys were just shit, bro. You guys were just shit. Who's with me? Sub if you're with me.
So I think it's been very clear to most of us in the Call of Duty community, especially on the competitive side, that the games took a rather steep downhill decline at some point. Pretty much 2019 was where things started to go downhill as far as I'm concerned. I think the early Black Ops games were a little bit better than Black Ops 4. I loved Black Ops 4, but it wasn't my favorite Black Ops game. Gotta say Black Ops 3 or 2 or... You guys know I've got a soft spot for Black Ops 1, probably because it was the first COD that I really ever got. I played a bit of Modern Warfare 2, but I didn't actually own it until much later down the line. But these are all the games in order up until Vanguard 2021, and we won't have to talk about Modern Warfare 2, thankfully, in this. But back in the day, when I was first getting into COD, skill-based matchmaking, which I do think is a big part of this whole discussion, was not a thing. And as a brand new player getting in, being absolutely woeful, it was about trying to improve and get better. You know, I'd play a free-for-all and I'd get 9 kills, maybe 8 kills, by the time the leading guy got 30 and won the free-for-all. And, you know, I'm thinking, all right, how do I get better, right? Like, do I need to watch his YouTube videos? And I started watching the Pub Stompers play and all this. And then by discovering to the Marker J and these guys, I used to love his videos back in the day, playing Black Ops 1, pubs and all this. You then discover, damn, these guys are really good. They're doing 100 plus kills. And then those guys happen to stumble into pro players. They play up against Nadeshot, they play other guys, and they get absolutely bodied. And then you start to realize, like what this scene is all about. But it's been a talking point for many years how in Call of Duty, the casual player dominates and we don't get any love for the competitive scene. And to be honest, you look at Modern Warfare 2019, that was a game that the skill gap was dulled down to a very low level. There were so many spots you could just camp at a window, the guns killed incredibly fast, and especially like MW19 compared to Black Ops 4 were just so polar opposite in many respects. Black Ops 4 had 150 health. Treyarch had been given the freedom, it seems, by Activision to make the game as they wanted. They had some degree, it was boots on the ground, but it was some advanced movement. You could slide a lot, right? There was a lot of things you could do. The grapple hook was also a feature. So there was a lot of things in that game. And then MW19 was the complete polar opposite. But for more casual players who had, frankly, departed during the Jetpack era, because you know, I get it. If you're not playing Call of Duty that much and you're going into Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3 Infinite Warfare, and you're getting absolutely bodied by a sweat like me or like you guys listening on the wall run, you know, maybe you're not going to be so happy about it, and I get it. And those games were not liked by casual players. And I think it was that perception. And even the competitive scene, let's not forget here, right? It's not just that all the pros loved those games and all the casuals hated it. That's not the case at all. There were many pro players, OG players, that really didn't like those Jetpack games while they're out. It's now the perception of the community, and there are some rose-tinted glasses here in play, even though I definitely enjoyed those games at the time, as did many, but there were many pro players that didn't like those advanced movement things. They wanted it to go back to a more traditional way. They didn't like any of the special movement stuff, and I do get it, right, but I don't think that it's not just all the casuals that hated it and all the competitive players loved it. Now, the perception nowadays is somewhat different, especially because the developers and Activision changed their mind, it seems, on the direction to some degree, especially MW19, dulling down the skill gap, all the things they did in that game to make it easier for new players, skill-based matchmaking coming in force. I think it was really from Advanced Warfare where skill-based matchmaking started to appear heavily and be, you know, especially I found it in that game, and there was Black Ops 3 wasn't so bad and Infinite Warfare wasn't so bad, but in the games that followed that, it was definitely a thing. And then over the last 3 or 4 Call of Duties, with the exception of Treyarch's Black Ops Cold War, really, the games have been very similar in how they're structured. The skill gap is very low, the pros don't really like them. Anyone can just sit in a window and get kills because their gun just absolutely incinerates the other team. Aiming is so easy. The aim assist is so strong nowadays because the time to kills back in Black Ops 2 were very fast. The MSMC would melt you up close really quick. The M8 would melt you. But shooting was hard. If you go back to those games, there wasn't much aim assist. If you were trying to beam someone with an SMG, it wasn't really possible because you didn't get aim assist beyond a certain range. So if you tried to map someone with the MSMC, you would have to burst fire it. And you look at that compared to Black Ops Cold War, when, okay, yeah, Treyarch designed game, but the AK-74U could rip you across the map because there was very strong aim assist, dynamic aim assist has come in, and all these things that have frustrated people. So is Dashy right, though, to point the blame on the casuals? Because at the end of the day, you know, the majority of the player base are more casual players, and even though when I used to play CoD, I'm like a competitive player, but I'm more of like a casual competitive player. Like, I'm not playing on a pro level, but I just like playing game battles and ranked and all this stuff. I have a different perception to what Dashy considers to be the casuals, or is it really the developers' fault at the end of the day? Because the casual players, as far as I'm concerned, maps like Black Ops 2's Raid and Standoff on these maps, if you ask players, casual players, let's say, that played those games, I think they will tell you that their favourite maps are probably some of the competitive maps. Because maps that are designed well for competitive tend to play pretty well for team deathmatch and regular public match game modes as well. So I think the two communities, as it were, have slightly more in common than people think. But then again, you do see some, what I would consider to be morons, really, on some of these subreddits, talking about their thoughts on the game and like that the competitive players ruined it and all this stuff for whatever reason, that they might come up with those ideas. And look, the developers, they want more money. MW19 sold a lot of copies. Warzone absolutely popped off. They made a killing on microtransactions and all this stuff because it was a game catered to that player and it worked out for them. But is that the fault of that player, that individual, or is that the fault of the developer that has made these design decisions over the last couple of years? So I would favour the latter, really. I'm not sure I fully agree with Dashy's assessment that it's the casual player's fault because they're just going to like what they like. I think it's on the developers that have made their design decisions over the last couple of years that have taken us from unanimously agreed great Call of Duties to where we are today. And I'm not really particularly hopeful that the upcoming title is going to be any better here in Modern Warfare 3. Just to compare, right, this was a clip that I saw doing the rounds over the last couple of days. This is a classic one from when the Black Ops 3 scene was absolutely popping off back in the day. This is Nagafen with the routes, but not the actual Nagafen with the routes clip, but this is another one in a chal. And this is kind of what I was saying the other day why, with the movement getting a bit ridiculous, because towards the end of the game's life cycle, everyone could and was doing this, and it was almost impossible to counter. But this clip is just spectacular in many ways. I mean, look at this guy. You can see him on the right-hand side of the screen here as he's defusing the bomb, and he even gets him in the kill cam, which I thought was fantastic. So yeah, 1v3 ninja defuse, just absolutely beautiful. And it's not the stuff you can do nowadays, right? Because this would make noise nowadays. You couldn't even be next to the guy. Sound EQ, all this cheese, like, this wouldn't be possible. They would have heard him. And that's the other thing, right, with the way the games are designed. The red dots thing, the fact that the sound is incredibly difficult to deal with, so many reasons why the game has, it doesn't play like this anymore. And I think that's what a lot of us would like to see. But very much intrigued to your perspective in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.